"We don't need Batman. We have Robin." In the stands of the Emirates, those words didn't just define a player, they defined an era. It was a declaration that Arsenal didn't need a Dark Knight, because they had the boy wonder. Because in this story, Robin didn't save Gotham. He burned it down to join the Joker. And to understand why this betrayal hurt so much, you have to remember why they needed a hero in the first place. Because the decline of Arsenal didn't start with a bang. It started with a silence. When Cesc Fabregas left North London in the summer of 2011, he didn't just take his passing range, his captain's armband, or his boyhood loyalty with him. He took certainty. He took continuity. He took the last remaining illusion that Arsenal were merely waiting for success, not drifting away from it. The stadium was still beautiful. The football was still elegant. But something had gone hollow. This was the era that would later be dismissed with a sneer. The banter era. A phrase that trivialized a far deeper pain. Year after year without silverware. Year after year of being close, but never close enough. Players arriving with promise, leaving with medals elsewhere. The Emirates felt less like a fortress and more like a waiting room. And now, suddenly, Arsenal needed a leader again. Not a prodigy, not a project, a man. Robin van Persie didn't ask for this responsibility. It arrived unannounced, like a weight placed on his chest in the dark. He had always been the artist, mercurial, fragile, brilliant in flashes. Now he was expected to be the spine, the reference point, the final word. With Fabregas gone, the question inside the club became unavoidable. If not him, then who? Van Persie was 28. His body carried scars. His reputation still carried doubt. But there was no one else left to believe in. Arsenal's future, once shared across generations, collapsed inward, onto one man's left foot. And yet, belief at Arsenal had always come at a cost. The debt, Wenger's faith, written in flesh. To understand the betrayal, you must first understand the debt. 8 years. That's how long Robin van Persie had worn red and white before becoming Arsenal's captain. 8 years of brilliance interrupted by cruelty, not from opponents, but from his own body. Metatarsals, ankles, knees, hamstrings, groins, ligaments that failed without warning. Seasons that ended before they ever truly began. There were years when Van Persie played fewer matches than he missed. Years when his name felt more familiar on medical reports than team sheets. In another club, under another manager, that might have been the end. But Arsenal were not another club, and Arsene Wenger was not another manager. Wenger saw something others didn't, or chose not to. Where executives saw risk, he saw responsibility. Where supporters grew impatient, he doubled down. He defended Van Persie publicly, repeatedly, even when it became uncomfortable to do so. He will come back stronger. He needs time. We trust him. Trust is an expensive currency in football. Wenger spent it lavishly on Van Persie. There was something paternal in it, protective, almost defiant. Wenger shielded him from pressure, from criticism, from himself. He managed his minutes. He altered training loads. He absorbed the anger of fans who wanted guarantees in a world that offered none. Van Persie knew this. He felt it. In private moments, Wenger spoke to him not like an asset, but like a son whose future still mattered. He believed Van Persie could be more than broken brilliance. He believed patience could still win in a sport that increasingly rewarded ruthlessness. And so Arsenal waited. They waited through surgeries, through rehabs, through false dawns, through seasons where Van Persie would return, sparkle, then disappear again. Each absence eroding faith outside the club, but strengthening the bond inside it. Because Wenger never gave up on him. When others whispered that Arsenal should move on, Wenger leaned in closer. When contracts were debated, Wenger insisted. When Van Persie needed reassurance, it was there. Steady, unwavering, almost unconditional. By the time Van Persie finally stayed fit, truly fit, the story felt almost mythological. Like destiny had been delayed, not denied. The club had endured the pain. The manager had paid the price. And now, finally, The investment was about to pay off. Or so it seemed, because debts in football are rarely settled cleanly, and faith, once repaid, can still be weaponized. The peak fire at the edge of control. Something changed in the autumn of 2011, not gradually, not subtly. It arrived like ignition. Robin van Persie stopped breaking down. His body, for the first time in years, held together. And when it did, the football that poured out of him felt almost violent in its clarity. This was not the elegance of potential anymore. This was authority. He scored with anger, with precision, with inevitability. 30 goals, 30 statements. Every week felt like a warning. Defenders backed away, goalkeepers guessed early. Stadiums leaned forward before he even struck the ball. There was a sense that the moment you gave him space, even half a yard, the damage was already done. The volley against Everton was the purest expression of it. The ball falling from the sky, time slowing just enough, his body folding into something mechanical and instinctive at once. No hesitation, no doubt. Just impact, violence, perfection. Against Liverpool, he didn't just score, he imposed himself. He dragged Arsenal through chaos and turned tension into control. He was no longer surviving matches, he was deciding them. This wasn't a hot streak, this was dominance. The Emirates felt different now, louder, sharper, less apologetic. For the first time in years, Arsenal supporters weren't talking about youth or projects or patience. They were talking about him. He is the one. That sentence passed through the stands like a secret finally spoken aloud. The captain, the finisher, the man who could still make Arsenal relevant in a league that was leaving them behind. Trust returned, recklessly, completely. Van Persie carried a broken team into the Champions League places almost by force of will. When midfield control disappeared, he scored. When confidence evaporated, he created it himself. He turned matches Arsenal had no right to win into moments of belief. And belief at Arsenal had been scarce. He played like a man who knew the clock was ticking, like someone aware that this version of himself might not last forever. Every goal felt urgent. Every celebration restrained, almost businesslike. There was electricity in it, but also danger. Because when a club finally gives itself to one man, it does so without protection. And when that man leaves, he doesn't just go. He takes something irreplaceable with him: the betrayal. The letter that froze North London. Summer arrived quietly. Too quietly. There were no contract photos, no smiling press conferences, just rumors drifting through the heat like smoke. Arsenal spoke of renewal. Van Persie spoke of reflection. And then one morning, the words appeared. An open letter, not a negotiation, not a farewell, a declaration. He spoke of ambition, of clarity, of needing guarantees that Arsenal could compete at the highest level. And then came the sentence that shattered everything. The little boy inside me screamed for Manchester United. For Arsenal supporters, it wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. The sentence reframed everything. Years of loyalty, of patience, of protection, suddenly reduced to a childhood dream that had never belonged to them. It implied that Arsenal had always been temporary, a step, a shelter, never the destination. It told fans that even at the moment they trusted him most, he was already somewhere else. The boy inside him didn't scream for trophies. He screamed for them. Manchester United. Not the faceless idea of success. Not even the inevitability of winning. But the one club Arsenal had measured themselves against for decades. The club that had denied them titles. The club that had humiliated them. The club whose manager embodied everything Wenger stood against. Sir Alex Ferguson. This wasn't pragmatism. This was personal. The fee made it worse. $24 million. A number that felt insulting in its neatness. Not reflective of his value. Not reflective of his goals. Certainly not reflective of the leverage Arsenal had lost. It felt like a theft conducted in daylight. Manchester City were there, rich, dominant, relentless. Their interest would have hurt, but it would have made sense. A move driven by trophies, by inevitability, by the modern game. But he didn't choose City. He didn't choose Roberto Mancini, he chose the enemy. Arsenal had raised him, protected him, waited for him. Arsene Wenger had trusted him beyond reason. And when Van Persie finally stood at the peak of his powers, he turned and walked straight into the arms of the man Wenger had spent his career opposing. Cold, calculated, surgical. There were no tears in the letter, no apology that lingered, just justification, logic, distance. The bond that had once felt paternal, intimate, unbreakable, severed by prose. And in North London, something hardened. Because fans can forgive failure, they can even forgive ambition, but they do not forgive being told that they were never the dream. Van Persie left as the hero Arsenal had waited for, and returned as the villain they would never stop remembering. The Knife, April 2013. The moment that never heals. There are moments in football that hurt because they happen, and moments that hurt because they are made to happen. The Guard of Honor was one of those. April 2013. The Emirates Stadium, bright daylight, clean grass, no hiding places. Arsenal's players walked out first, not as hosts, but as witnesses. Lined up, hands ready, faces set. They were there to applaud the champions. Robin van Persie stepped forward in red, but not that red. For a second, time stalled. The stadium didn't know how to breathe. This wasn't rivalry, this wasn't noise, this was ritualized humiliation. Bakary Sagna clapped. Theo Walcott clapped. Thomas Vermaelen clapped. Men who had shared dressing rooms with him, rehab rooms, defeats, promises. Men who had bled through the same drought, now applauding the man who escaped it. Not because they wanted to, because the rules said they must. Van Persie walked past them with his head high. Professional, polite, detached. There was no smile, no apology either, just movement. Forward, always forward. The Emirates watched its own past walk by wearing someone else's future. Later, the knife twisted. The penalty. It came without drama, no controversy, no chaos, just inevitability. Van Persie placed the ball, took his steps, finished calmly, perfectly, the same man, the same technique, against the same club. He didn't explode in celebration, he didn't collapse to his knees. He raised his hands, a muted gesture, somewhere between respect and refusal. Enough to say, I remember. Not enough to say, I regret. For Arsenal supporters, it was worse than a celebration. It meant he felt justified. Manchester United won the title that day in spirit, if not on paper. And, weeks later, Van Persie lifted the Premier League trophy, Sir Alex Ferguson's final masterpiece, his final gift to himself. The image burned itself into memory. Van Persie, smiling, medal around his neck, red ribbons fluttering. Not Arsenal red, never Arsenal red again. For years, fans would tell themselves, football is a business. That loyalty is naive, that this is how the game works now. But no explanation ever erased that image. Because some wounds aren't opened by betrayal alone, they are reopened by triumph. The verdict. What victory costs history demands honesty. Robin van Persie was right. He wanted a Premier League medal. He wanted certainty. He wanted to win now, not someday. He didn't want to be a symbol of patience anymore. He wanted proof, and he got it. One season, one title. One final gift from the greatest manager English football has ever known. In purely professional terms, the decision worked. But football legacies are not built on medals alone. At Arsenal, Van Persie could have been something else. He could have been the broken genius who stayed, the captain who endured the fall and helped shape the return, the man whose statue would have stood not for trophies, but for belief, for loyalty in an era that abandoned it. He chose certainty instead. And so, at Arsenal, he became a stranger. Not hated, hatred fades too easily. Something colder replaced it. Distance, silence. When his name is spoken now, it is spoken carefully, without warmth, without ownership. He belongs to Arsenal's history, but not its heart. And at Manchester United, he was brilliant, deadly, essential for a year. Then Sir Alex left. The system changed. The moment passed. United moved on. He is remembered there fondly, but not eternally. He does not sit alongside Giggs, or Scholes, or Keane, men whose stories are inseparable from the club's soul. Van Persie was a chapter, a powerful one, but a chapter nonetheless. In choosing the medal, he avoided the risk of waiting, but he also avoided the chance of being immortal. Football rarely allows you both. And so, Robin van Persie walks through the game's memory holding gold. But without a home that fully claims him. He won, but he lost something quieter, something that cannot be lifted, something that cannot be traded. He has the silverware, but the love stayed behind. So, I leave the final verdict to you. Was the Premier League trophy worth the price of his legacy? Did he make the ruthless choice of a winner, or the selfish choice of a traitor? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this documentary, please hit the like button. It helps these stories survive. And for more untold chapters from football history, make sure to subscribe to Football Chronicles. See you in the next one.